Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Chelsea and welcome to day 2 of BOOKMAS. Today we're going to be talking about all of my recommendations for the winter/holiday season. Now I will say these feel different to me, and you can tell in the way that I broke up my kind of sub-stacks that I have some very specific holiday recommendations as opposed to just books that I believe are perfect to read for the winter season as a whole. So let's go ahead and jump in to my recommendations. We'll start with the smallest stack first, and this is just like general fiction. I don't read a ton of this genre, so I only have a few recommendations for you, but we'll start out with the Delegate Dream Department Store. This is a little bit like cozy magical realism, so I definitely could have put this in fantasy as well, but it feels much more of a general fiction book to me. I read this in a reading vlog a couple of weeks ago for my book club, and I really enjoyed it. It feels cozy. It feels like a warm mug of tea. It feels like a sweet hug at the end of a long day. I just think this is like the most delightful book to read if you are in the cozy mood. I think it would be a perfect audiobook. This is about a little fake town inside your subconscious that sells dreams. People go there in their sleep and they go and pick up dreams. And each chapter is a little bit of a vignette of a different human person on their journey in the dream world. Highly recommend this if you're looking for a cozy time. Now, the next book on our list is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I read this several years ago and I still think about this all the time. This starts off in 1974-75. Our main character is a 13-year-old girl who ends up moving to the wilderness of Alaska with her parents, and it's kind of her journey in growing up in Alaska with an abusive father, with a mother who is just trying to do right by her husband and her daughter, and it's really harrowing in some aspects, but also really hopeful. To me, this is a perfect winter read. Last but certainly not least in this category, we have Beartown by Frederick Backman. Are you guys sick of me talking about this book yet? Because I talk about it all the time. I want to read you this brief snippet on the back of the book because I think this is the perfect description of Beartown. This is a story about a town and a game, but even more about loyalty, commitment, and the responsibilities of friendship, the people we disappoint even though we love them, and the decision we make every day that come to define us. In this story of a small forest town, Frederick Backman has found the entire world. This book is so beautiful. It's so well written. This has to go on your winter TBR if you haven't read it yet. All right, our next category is probably the largest category we have, and that is fantasy. This is encompassing general fantasy as well as fantasy romance, so do with that what you will. First up, we have The Bear in the Nightingale. I don't see this book very often on BookTube, but I highly recommend this book for the winter. It's set in like the northernmost parts of Russia, if you will, and it says, Vasilisa and her siblings love to gather by the fire to listen to their nurse's fairy tales. Above all, Vasya loves the story of Frost, the blue-eyed winter demon. Wise Russians fear him, for he claims unwary souls, and they honor the spirits that protect their homes from evil. Vasya can see these spirits, and she realizes that her village is kind of being encroached upon by more evil spirits, and so she taps into her power that is kind of hidden to protect the people that she loves. This is kind of the beginning of her journey in discovering her magic, her power, and kind of who she is as a person, and it's so beautiful. Next up is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is book 1 in the Legendborn cycle, I believe the series is called. Book 2 is out, book 3 is not yet out, but this series is so incredible. The way that Tracy talks about grief is incredible. After her mother dies in an accident, 16-year-old Bree Matthews wants nothing to do with her family memories or childhood home. A residential program for bright high schoolers at UNC Chapel Hill seems like the perfect escape, until Bree witnesses a magical attack on her very first night on campus. a secret society of so-called legend-born students who hunt the creatures down. Now, there's a little bit of a love triangle here. There's a bad boy, good guy trope, which I absolutely love. The magic in here is really interesting. We're dealing with like the Knights of the Round Table, and that's not something that I really read about very often, so I love that it's a little bit unique. Highly recommend this book. Next, we have a book that is not a stranger to anyone, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I don't know if I need to say anything about this book. We've got dragons, we've got a morally gray shadow daddy. I mean, need I say more? To me, this is the perfect book for winter because you can just get lost in the story, and that's really what I want from a winter book, is to just get lost in a world, get completely absorbed in it, and kind of lose any sight of reality, and Fourth Wing is going to deliver on that. And book 3 comes out in January, so this is the perfect time to read if you haven't yet. Along those same lines, my next recommendation is also not going to be a stranger to anyone, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses. I first read this book over Christmas, and ever since then, I've been rereading it every Christmas. This will be my 7th year reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. This to me is just nostalgic at Christmas time, and the first chapter, you open up in a snowy wood. That's winter. Thank you very much. Next up is kind of a long series, but I feel like it fits for the winter, and that is the Shadowhunter series, but more specifically Clockwork Angel. I am just about to finish reading the entire Shadowhunter series, and I don't know if I would recommend starting with Clockwork Angel. I would definitely start with City of Bones, but Clockwork Angel and the Infernal Devices trilogy is the perfect winter series. If you have not read Shadowhunters yet, like, what are you doing? Next, we have Six of Crows, and in turn, Crooked Kingdom as well. This follows a misfit crew who has the opportunity of a lifetime to pull off a heist that no one else can do except for Kaz Brekker and his team. I absolutely adore these characters. This is one of the best found families I have seen in a novel, and it will make you cry. So if that's what you're into, pick up Six of Crows. I have a couple more series on here that I think are perfect for the winter. One of them is An Ember in the Ashes. This is a 4-book series, and I know a lot of people have been picking this one up recently because they recently redid the covers, and I'm so glad that this is getting like so much more attention. This is one of my all-time favorite series. The thing I love about this series is that our author is incredibly loyal to the story. She's not loyal to the characters. So you know you're gonna get heartbroken, but it'll be worth it in the end, I promise. And last but not least, I've got Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. I think this is the perfect little duology for the winter, mostly because we've got a little like you've got mail moment going on with these magical typewriters, and a little rivals to lovers moment that feels very winter-esque. Like, it's cozy, it's romantic, it's sweet, it's like slow moving, it's not super fast paced. Like, I feel like you can sit in it and really absorb this story and really fall in love with our two main characters, and that feels perfect to me for winter. That is my large group of fantasy recommendations. Next up, we're going to talk about kind of like general romance / love stories, because I will say I don't believe all of these books are actual romances, but they are love stories, if that makes sense. All right, first up for our romance / love story section is Alone with You in the Ether by Olive E. Blake. I will say for the majority of the books in this category, we're just looking for a beautiful story. We're looking for a little bit of a slower plot line. It's not super fast paced. We're really digging into like character development. It's not plot driven, if you will. We're really digging into the characters, and it has a little bit of like a softer side, if you will. And Alone with You in the Ether ticks all of those boxes for me. This is really like a character study and a study into mental health and how it affects our relationships. Next up, I have the Boys of Tommen series. This is actually book 5. Please do not start with Taming 7. I don't own books 1 through 4. I did read them on Kindle Unlimited. The first book is Binding 13, so please start with that one. But this is a rugby romance series following a group of characters who are growing up in a small town in Ireland. I believe it's Ireland. Our first 2 books in this series follow Johnny and Shannon. The second 2 books follow Joey and Aoife, and this one follows Jared and Claire. Now, we see all of these characters in all of the books, but the main characters have their specific books. This series is not over yet, but it definitely is more character-driven instead of plot-driven, and I just love that you can kind of like get sucked into this world and these characters and really fall in love with each of the characters. They are kind of tragic. I'm letting you know that up front. You might cry, and there are quite a few trigger warnings, so please check that before you pick up this series. Next up, we have one of my all-time favorite series, and if you know, you know, and that is the Magnolia Parks universe. I am more of a Daisy girl, to be honest with you, but I absolutely adore all of the Magnolia Parks books. I cannot get enough of these books, this series, the full box set. I'm so obsessed. I'm ready for a reread, and I think winter is the perfect time to do that. That might be because I binged this series in winter a couple of years ago, but to me it feels like a winter book because you can just settle in, binge it in a few days. I think I read all 4 when they were out in like 5 days. It was insane, but it will consume you. You will get lost in this world, and I think that's kind of exactly what I need during the winter. Next, I have a couple of romances that just feel like winter to me, but they're not holiday romances. First up, we have The Simple Wild. Now, this book is actually set in the summer, but the series as a whole is not all set in the summer, and it takes place in Alaska, so it feels like a winter vibe to me. We've got Kala, our main character, who's a little bit of a city girl from Toronto, and she ends up going to Alaska to visit her father, whom she hasn't seen since she was a little kid, I believe. And there she meets Jonah. He's like a grumpy pilot who works for her dad, and you know, opposites attract, a little grumpy sunshine, a little enemies or like dislike to lovers. It's very sweet. There's a lovely relationship between her and her father and her and a couple of other characters in this town. And the second book and the third book as well are just as beautiful. I love getting lost in this little town, in these characters. The found family is really beautiful in this story. Highly recommend picking this one up in the winter as well. And last but not least, we have Famous Last Words by C.W. Farnsworth. This is a straight up romance, but it is a hockey romance. This book is a little bit complicated, okay? We've got Harlow, whose parents died in an accident when she was like 17 or 18. And so when she goes home from college, she goes home to her parents' best friend's house, who have a son who is also her best friend. But the father has another son from a previous relationship, Connor, and Connor and Harlow actually go to the same college, but they have avoided each other for their entire college career until they are both seniors when Harlow asks Connor for some help in training for a race. Connor is the star hockey player, but he has a tumultuous relationship with his father for good reason. So there's a little bit of forbidden love in this book because Connor is kind of on the outs with Harlow's adoptive family and is really seen as like, you know, we don't talk about him, we don't interact with him, and I think they kind of expect Harlow to do the same, but she gets to know him and finds out who he really is, and there's a little bit of drama involved, but I love Connor and Harlow's relationship. I think it's so sweet. I love seeing Connor kind of grow and figure out who he is without his dad, and that his relationship with his father does not define him as a person. So this is such a fun book, but it's also got some like deeper meaningful moments as well, and it's rather short. I think I read this like in a day. So this is a really good book if you're trying to like fit one in before the end of the year. The last category on this very large list of recommendations is holiday romances. I love reading holiday romances at the end of November, beginning of December, and now is the perfect time for me to read all of the holiday romances. And if you're anything like me, you're always looking for recommendations. So here's quite a few for you if you are also looking for some recommendations. First up, we have my tried and true Love Life Farms by B.K. Borison. If you know, you know. I've read this book several times. I remember finding this book on Kindle Unlimited when it was first released, and I was like screaming from the rooftops, everyone read this book. And now she's got a full series. She's got more books coming out. I'm so proud of her as an author. This book is like my dream holiday romance. We've got our main character Stella, who owns a Christmas tree farm, and she is looking for a fake boyfriend. So who does she turn to? Her best friend Luca, who has basically been in love with her since they became friends. I am so obsessed with this romance. It takes place on a Christmas tree farm. We've got the sweetest little small town. Luca is like chef's kiss book boyfriend. I love him so much. The spice is sweet. The tension is great. This is the gold standard for me. Now, the next book on this list is one of my favorites from a couple of years ago, and that is Kiss Her Once for Me. This is a little second chance sapphic romance, and it's got a little bit of a twist with some fake dating of family members. I love this book. I think it's so sweet. It takes place in the Pacific Northwest. We've got a baker, we've got a graphic designer, and I just think this is one of the sweetest traditionally published holiday romances. I don't often like traditionally published holiday romances, but this is definitely one that I recommend. The next few are all books that I have read on Kindle Unlimited and do not own copies of, but highly recommend. The first one is Faking Under the Mistletoe. This is a cutie little workplace fake dating grumpy sunshine. I read this book a really long time ago, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, and I still reread it every year. I think it's just like such a cute little holiday romance. It takes place in New York. Our FMC is this happy-go-lucky, bubbly character, and our MMC is like the grumpy boss that no one wants to talk to. And I just love how she pulls him out of his shell, and he's like, will do anything for her to make her happy, and it's just so cute. Next up, we have A Little Magic, which I believe came out last year, and it's a brother's best friend, and I think it's got a Christmas tree farm as well, if I remember correctly. This was like my favorite book from last year, and maybe I'll read it again this year if I've got time. We'll see. Next up is Faking Christmas. This is a little kind of a workplace romance. We've got two coworkers who she believes are rivals who end up in the same small town for Christmas, and they end up fake dating for reasons, and turns out maybe he doesn't hate her all that much after all, and it's so cute. And this one is also on Kindle Unlimited. Now I have 2 recommendations of new books that have recently come out that I highly recommend that I've already read. One is Christmas with a Crank, which takes place, guess it, on a Christmas tree farm. We've got childhood friends to lovers. We've got a little second chance romance. This one is a cutie little romance. It is a sweet romance, so there's no spice. We've got kissing only, but the tension is there. I love seeing our main characters come out of their shells and figure out their feelings for one another that maybe have been there since they were 12 years old. It is so cute, so sweet. You can find this one on Kindle Unlimited as well. And last but certainly not least is my most recent favorite, The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. If you know, you know I have been talking about this book so much recently. This is a new subgenre that I might have to get into in 2025. This is like a cozy romance mystery novel, if you will. We've got our 2 main characters who are both mystery authors. She thinks they hate each other. He definitely doesn't hate her. And they are brought to England under the guise of spending Christmas with their biggest fan, who happens to be the most prolific mystery author of all time. And while they are there, she disappears, and they are on the case. They're trying to figure out who done it, what the mystery is, what's going on, along with all of our author's family. And it's sweet. It's got some little bit of spice. It's got a little bit of mystery, and I love how much he loves her. It's like so cute. I can't stop giggling over it. Highly recommend this one. It just came out. Please pick this up for your holiday reading. So there you have it. Here are all of my holiday and winter recommendation books for you guys. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these books, which ones you would recommend, or if you have a book that you would recommend that I did not put on this list. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you had a wonderful time, and I will catch you on day 3 of BOOKMAS. Bye!